Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello. Welcome to the program. It's a Friday. It's in fact the 18th of April. And Christopher Potter is supposed to be right here. We will be sending a search party out momentarily to ascertain his whereabouts and, if need be, to rope him into coming to the studio. So.
Are we on?
Hi.
You know, there's a cardinal rule in broadcast journalism.
You're never late.
Ever.
Yeah, I was one of those. Ma'am, I gotta go. I gotta go. Ma'am.
Yeah,
let me transfer.
Got it. Oh, is that you're blaming it for a woman? You were on a phone call?
I was on one of those. You know how those are.
Was she complaining, or was she trying to provide you with information, a hot source, as it were?
She was not a hot source. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, so you weren't attracted to her, but it was.
No. It was one of those. One of those. Kind of. When you answer your own phone,
it's awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, can't you do you do voices? Why can't you be a secretary?
Hello?
Yeah, right. I'm sorry, Mr. Potter is not in. Can't you do something like I do that?
Yeah.
When I answer my own phone, and they'll say, no, I will, because they'll say, you can tell, you make the mistake of actually answering it, and it turns out to be, is Ms. Cullen in, and or Mrs. Cullen in?
Mrs. Cullen, that's the tip off right there, right?
Mrs. Cullen or Mrs. Collins in, and I will say, oh, I'm sorry, she's not. Well, when do you expect her?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not really certain.
I was on a call list for a while from the right wing groups, and I think it's because I signed up to be a member of the NRA so I could go to their convention.
Yeah, sure.
And so then you get on the list and you just get all these great phone calls and I can't remember exactly what name I gave, but it was one of those where they asked for it. And I would always take the call because I was always just like, let's see what Newt Gingrich's political action committee is up to this week. And
speaking of that, Mr. Potter. I, sort of in the periphery of my consciousness as I, keep track of what's going on in the world, I kept seeing little bits and snippets, mostly I think on Twitter, about something.
That's a great place to see bits and snippets for sure.
That is correct.
Yeah.
But it was about something, it kept saying like Bundy Ranch.
Yes.
Okay. And all I could think of was Ted Bundy.
Right.
And I
married with cattle.
Yeah, right. I thought, what is this about? And I never quite. It always seemed like some kind of a. I never really looked into it, believe it or not, until today.
I was going to say you would love this story. This is a great story.
But here's what's
one man sticking it to the government.
But here's the thing. It shows, does it not, what an incredible divide there is in this nation, in the universes we inhabit, in that I could go on and actually, as my job, do a news-oriented program and never, reading all the legitimate news things, I really never see anything about what is apparently the largest story in the right-wing world. And for left wing too. I mean, because there were a lot of people. I mean, I found about it from your typical lefty sources or whatever. Because why were the lefties into it? Because they just thought it was so absurd. Because for them, for those who haven't been following this guy, who's been a rancher out in Nevada, has been, as many ranchers do in that area, has been using federally owned Bureau of Land Management National Park Service.
Okay, so he's been using their land to graze his cattle on, as many ranchers out there have done, and he has been in a dispute with them now for going on 15 years, I think, 15, 20 years, something like that. 20 years about... He has not paid his rent. He has not paid the fees. He has not paid the fees. There's a fee you have to pay, and he's upset because at some point, apparently, the government was curtailing his allotment of land as an environmental thing. They were trying to protect some endangered species out there. And so he has just said, screw you, I'm not paying. And now what you've got is the government saying, well, you got to get your cattle off the land. This has gone through the courts. He's lost at every level over the years. And finally, the government just said,
okay,
gotta go.
But all these literally,
Yes.
gun-toting
Yes.
people in camo have gone to his aid,
Yes.
right? And so there's like this militia of red-blooded,
Right.
gun-toting
Right.
Americans who are pointing their guns at representatives of their government.
Yes.
Who have been on the right side of every ruling on this
Yes.
issue. And they're being egged on, rooted on by Fox News.
Yes. Sean Hannity.
Hannity,
Yep.
especially, apparently. And it says Hannity has all but encouraged a violent confrontation.
Yes.
And, this is where I really do despair. I mean, and here, wait.
These are the people who made fun of Occupy. That's what I want to say
isn't
about it.
that
These are the
funny?
people who made fun of Occupy. You can't be in the park. You got to get those hippies out.
Okay, and here's what this idiot Bundy says. Quote, I do not recognize the United States government as even existing.
Yeah, one of those guys.
Okay, fine. Well, how about a bullet right between your damn eyes, you idiot? See if you maybe that'll make you think, oh, I guess maybe it does exist. His last thoughts will be of the existence of the U.S. government. But what do they want? Do they want? They're like, it's like, come on, give us another Waco. Is that what they want?
I think for some people, this is. I mean, this is again. It's not just that these are the people who make fun of Occupy. These are the people who are like Saul Alinsky tactics on the left, Saul Alinsky. But that's what this is. They are trying to goad the government into a response that they can then use to discredit the government. That's it. I mean, that's if the right-wing understanding of Saul Alinsky tactics means anything, it means that.
So what is the government supposed to do?
Well, yeah,
in a
this is the
case like
question.
this?
I mean, what they did essentially is they backed down.
Is there something they can do by confiscating taking everything from him that they can get their hands on?
They were confiscating cattle, and they have now stopped doing that. And sooner or later, what can they do? Take him to court again, I guess. But sooner or later, if you have a property right, you have to do something to enforce it.
Yeah, you do.
And
especially
so later,
since there's tens of thousands of other ranchers
who are paying
these fees and who are abiding by the rules. And this one fool, this one.
Who's apparently within his community, sort of, from what I understand, just from what I've heard and read. I mean, it's not like the people his neighbors aren't the ones rallying to his side.
No.
Apparently, a lot of them think he's just a complete pain in the ass.
A crank.
Yeah.
But also, so yesterday, I think it finally got my attention as there was all this news about how they had a plan, these lunatic right-wingers, and they were going to, in a confrontation with the government, they were going to put the women, their wives and stuff, out in front.
That's since been
Are you sure?
retracted. The guy who first made that claim has since said he was wrong about that. Like, he was accurately quoted and all that stuff.
Okay, and that guy is named Richard Mack.
I believe so.
He is in the National Rifle Association Hall of Fame, in case you didn't know.
Well, if he wasn't before, he would be now. Dang it.
Yep. So here, Timothy Egan, here's where I finally got some information on it today. There was a piece finally in the New York Times about it, so I read this. And he says this, which is so true. Just imagine Fox News and all you guys who love her. What did I make it a her for?
I don't know.
I don't know either. If you change the picture here to, let's say, Black Panthers surrounding a lawful eviction in the inner city, Do you think right-wing media would be there cheering on the Panthers?
You don't have to imagine it. There was that one dude at that Philadelphia polling place.
That's right.
5 years ago.
White people with guns are true-blooded, red-blooded Americans. Black people with guns are criminals.
Yeah, and this is why, and historically speaking, I mean, the reason California for a long time had like some of the most stringent gun rules in the country was because Black Panthers showed up out in front of the California State House,
right,
packing heat, and people just had a meltdown. Now, flash forward 45 years, and now you've got right-wingers basically demanding the right to pack heat pretty much anywhere they want to go, to churches, to local government gatherings, anywhere they want. And so that is how, so, you and I have said this before on the show many a time, if you want gun control, you need to publicly arm black people,
every
hippies,
black person in this country, long hairs, people with piercings, and
strap them,
and people like me, little old ladies. We need to arm, and you know what? That is exactly what would give the NRA pause.
Yeah.
You know that? Yeah. It is so true. It's brilliant. And everybody I've told this brilliant idea of yours says it's brilliant. Yeah. And then they drop it. Yeah. Because
well, you and I should go out. You and I should go out and go buy guns. Maybe we could do like a remote. Don't you radio folks do remotes? We'll go out to like West. We'll go out to Anthony Arms or one of those places where they sell. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Okay.
And we could go like to gun ranges together.
I'd love to.
It would be an absolute hoot.
Let's do it. Yeah. I will.
All right.
And yeah. Hey,
my wife is going to kill me. I'm going to need that gun when I get home tonight. The lighter side of domestic violence. Sorry. That was probably not in the best taste. I apologize.
No, but you need it for self-protection.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
No, we got the
mean streets of the South Hills, baby.
I know. God.
Life's pretty cheap in the 216.
So, speaking of guns, I'm having dinner with some friends of mine last night, and sort of offhandedly, one of them says, I'll use fake names here. John almost killed somebody last night, almost shot somebody.
Wow.
John's sitting right next to me. I said, what? What?
Yeah.
Turns out it's like 9:30 at night. They have they're living on a second story. She hears, John's wife hears, obviously people on their balcony, on their second floor balcony. How you get there, I don't know.
Yeah.
And she screams. He grabs, I didn't know he had.
Wow.
He grabs his gun.
Yeah.
And opens the door, and there are two kids there. Like 19, 20-ish.
Yeah.
A girl and a boy.
Yeah.
And they had been playing with a big, silly pink ball that had somehow gotten kicked onto their... And in pursuit of this stupid pink ball, how they did it, he must have scaled a tree, then climbed up. Yeah. But somebody who... Stop and think about it.
Castle doctrine. Yeah.
Could have been dead.
Yeah.
Could have been killed. And
it's happened.
And I know.
Yeah.
And my friend said to are you nuts?
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't that the big question with all of these stuff is threat detection and who can do it and who can't? Because the thing that strikes me about this whole issue with this Burden guy is these guys. Let's remember what's going on here. He wanted free access to rangeland, and he is quote unquote oppressed. Bundy. Sorry, okay. He's oppressed to the extent that he doesn't get free stuff from the government. Right, and that's what this whole right-wing victim thing is. Wait, you're holding us responsible for the consequences of our actions. You are taking you're getting treated like everybody else, and that's the problem that they have.
What do they say? What is their what is?
I mean, a lot of it, as far as
possibly
I can see, what the argument is essentially it boils down to this land is really his because his family has been using it.
Huh.
And some people say quite falsely and wrongly that the land actually belonged to the state, which is absolutely not true.
No.
The other thing is they're always like, these guys are always using the states' rights thing. You know, I mean, like that's, I assume that's what Bundy was talking about when he doesn't recognize the federal government. It's somehow the state that is the, even though I suspect most of the people in the state think the guy's a jerk too. So,
right.
You know, but their argument seems to be because his family has been there for 100 bloody years, that he still has, that somehow by use it has become his, which well,
can you
the counter argument is I'm sure
money back to the Native Americans?
I'm sure there's a lot of like Crow and Comanche and Apaches
would say, hey, buddy, that's my
who would say,
land.
yeah, we were using it up until you all showed up. So is this not the story of the right wing in America? The government did all this great stuff for them. They shot up the Native Americans. They shot up the indigenous people who were living here, rounded up, corralled them, and sent them off someplace. But now you feel as though you're the one being burned because you're having to pay a tab that everyone who lives around you is also paying. It's a remarkable display of entitlement. And
it's very sort of transparent in its effort to create a conflict, to draw the government into a bloody confrontation.
I just love to ask these guys the questions that everybody asked Occupy. Don't you have jobs? Well, you got time to just like leave your homes, leave your jobs, and then just go hang around on this dude's ranch?
Yeah, that's a good...
For days on end? Go get work. Get jobs, you layabouts.
Okay, well, so I finally get the Bundy thing.
Yeah. And it's even crazier than you would think, judging from it. You know what I mean? Like, when you really look into it, you're just like,
I hope
wow.
They figure out a way to just keep enough of a presence there and just wait these idiots out. I don't know. I just, do not in any way.
Well, I mean, the problem is I don't want there to be bloodshed either, but like at some point, these guys show up. So are you never, are the only people we're going to evict the people who don't have guns? Are the only people who the sheriff shows up and locks out of their homes because they couldn't pay their rent going to be the poor folks who don't cause trouble? Like, what are we rewarding here? You're rewarding people for showing up with shotguns and whatever else and threatening to shoot people. Is that what it takes to get it done in this country now? The only people who are exempt from the consequences of their actions are Wall Street bankers
and white guys with guns.
and white guys with guns. White guys with hedge funds and white guys with guns are the only people who are the people who are above the law. Everyone else, if you don't pay your rent and the sheriff shows up and locks you out, you just have to take it. That is madness. That is fundamentally unjust.
Then mow him down. Mow him all down.
I have to say, like, we're sort of making fun of them for, like, flipping about these, and becoming the new face of Occupy or whatever. But there is a part of me that is almost just
right.
Send in the tanks!
Yeah, right.
Which is a terrible thing to admit about myself.
Flamethrowers. Yeah. Milk 'em.
Let's see some big government.
Yeah, let's. I love the idea. I really do. All right. Well, what's his first name? He's got some weird name.
Oh, it's like Caven or
Cliven?
Cliven?
C-L-I-V and Cliven.
Yeah.
Kind of an American name is that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds foreign to me.
Yeah. Well, actually, it sounds perfect. Cliven Bundy.
Yeah, it does have a certain...
Yeah, it does. Cliven Bundy.
A certain male pouch tang to it.
That's right. God-fearing, NRA card-carrying. One of America's true fine patriots who does not recognize the government of the United States of America. Oh, God. Okay, I don't want to talk about these jerks.
Hey, guess what?
I know. That's why.
All right.
I was ahead of you, actually.
Okay. Well, you so often are.
Okay. We'll be back in just literally a minute.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register twin tickets to see Lady Gaga at the Consol Energy Center on May 7th. The CP Haps app brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Babies come with lots of decisions.
Cloth or disposable? Crib or bassinet?
So when it comes to protection, go with the safest, most effective choice, vaccination. Get all the recommended vaccines for your baby by age 2 to protect your child against 14 serious childhood diseases. For more reasons to vaccinate, talk to your child's doctor. Go to cdc.gov/vaccines or call 800-CDC-INFO. A message from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
It's flirting with blasphemy.
Is it?
Criminy?
Yeah.
He just said criminy.
Yeah.
Do you say criminy Pete?
I don't.
Okay, but criminy is one of those tortured ways of still blaspheming without saying Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Criminy?
Yeah, really?
Well, sure it is.
Does crikey count?
And then when they say criminy Pete,
Yeah.
and that's St. Peter, criminy Pete. Don't you think?
No.
I'm just saying, you ain't faking me out. You're still a blasphemer.
Oh, Lord.
And on this day of all days, I'm shocked, mortified.
I find that hard to imagine, actually. But
Okay, so here's this other story I found really interesting, that our hero, Snowden,
yes.
allowed himself to be a prop
No.
for our dear friend Vladimir Putin. Now, what do you make of this? Because either Snowden did it willingly or Snowden did it because he was told to do it. What do you make of that?
I have no idea.
You know what we're talking about? Putin had a press conference yesterday. He's going on and on. He's taking calls. And, well, I'll be if there's not some strange call that comes in from on videotape. And it's from our guy Snowden. And Vlad says, what does he say? When told there was a question from Mr. Snowden, Vladimir said, well, how could we do without that? And then Snowden asked him, well, do you do what the United States did? And blah, blah, blah. And then Vladimir says, of course we don't. We are a nation of law.
Yes.
We this and that, the courts. And that was that. Just when Snowden could have been walking around feeling, pretty good because of the Pulitzers, then he goes and does this.
Yeah.
It's disappointing.
Oh, yeah.
Very.
Absolutely. Yes.
Boy,
Yeah.
that took the wind out of your sails, didn't it?
How do you mean?
Did it? No. Aren't you unhappy about it?
I mean, yeah, but
So what?
truth to tell, the value of Edward Snowden, in my opinion, is what
He
the
did.
stories he helped to make public, and after that, I don't really care that much. I mean, look, a lot of the truth of the matter is, and those of us, and I'm sure, Lynn, your experience has been like mine, which is we've never had a story of this octane, but that very often when you meet whistleblowers at any level,
Yeah,
a lot of the times the whistleblowers themselves
they're
are
not very likable.
They're dislikable people, and part of what makes them, and it's the flip side of the same coin. If they were the kind of people that were easy to get along with, they'd also very often be the kind of people who go along to get along. And whistleblowers often are people who feel they've been wronged or have their own motives or simply just don't care about the people.
They also might be a little megalomaniacal themselves.
They can absolutely be.
And,
so for Snowden to turn out to be something less than a sort of patron saint of transparency or whatever does not come as a tremendous shock to me.
But of all Vladimir Putin is about as vile a guy He really is. He just makes my skin crawl.
Yeah, absolutely so.
Right.
I mean, well, you don't feel better that George Bush could look inside his eyes and see his soul there? That didn't somehow. I mean, let's talk. If you want to talk about sort of bedfellows that you don't want to be comfortable with, there's a good example, right? If I have to apologize for Snowden, then every person who voted for George Bush needs to apologize for Putin.
Yeah. David D'Angelo from Two Political Junkies says he wrote about this stuff the other day because the Tribune Review, God bless it, apparently called what was going on at the Bundy Ranch government bullying.
Yeah.
And said this needs to be taken care of in the courts.
Yeah, right.
And as David D'Angelo pointed out, I guess they missed the 2 decades of court decisions against Cliven.
Again, it's. I mean, I saw David's post and I saw the Trib's piece about that. Again, Trib was pretty harsh about Occupy.
Right.
I could certainly recall some frustration on the right. Let's recall, to focus this a little bit, when there was a time with Occupy Pittsburgh where a judge said, "Sorry, folks, you got to get off that property. It does not belong to you."
And they went, didn't they?
And they went, but you may recall that before they went, there was a certain impatience with when is Sheriff Bill Mullen going to go in there and roust these layabouts and these no good nicks. And he didn't. He let the thing take care of itself, and as a result, nobody got maced, and nobody got beaten over the head. No police officers were harmed. So, here's the point. At some point, government has to require people to comply.
Right. If it's going to have
a court order, if the court order is to have any meaning whatsoever.
Right.
And that's the situation. It's bizarre. It's bizarre to see these guys rally behind this person who, again, how is it government bullying? He was expected to pay a fee. He did not pay the fee. Sooner or later, people get evicted for not paying rent.
Well, it's just unbelievable how brazen they are then.
Yeah. And I guess the argument is, well, it doesn't really count because this is government land and Occupy was on private property that belonged to Mellon. But the government owned that land. You and I own that land.
Yeah.
It belongs to us as citizens and
money.
taxpayers of the United States of America.
But that's an entity we just do not recognize, I guess.
Yeah. Right. That's what I love. And that too is part of the right-wing mindset, right? You go and look at these tax protesters who simply refuse to acknowledge that there's an entity.
Well, how can they pretend to be patriots at the same time they don't recognize?
Well, they argue that because they argue, and this is how their mindset is, right? That the real infringement here, they believe in the United States government more than the United States government does because the IRS is illegal, that it was passed in defiance of the Constitution, blah, 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 despite the fact that it was actually the Constitution was amended to allow it. It's just, I mean, the whole thing is just, it's a closed loop mindset.
Well, and it's only going to get worse because these same people are destroying public schools, and more people are going to be educating their own children in their own way at home and in like little like-minded charters. Yep. And
then they'll go to colleges like Liberty University.
Exactly right.
And get a hermetically sealed education right up till they're adults.
God, it's really weird. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
More good news for UPMC. I mean, it just keeps on a-coming.
Yeah.
Guess what? UPMC, which, as you recall, has no employees, it says right here on the front page, UPMC breach affects 27,000 workers. So apparently it has at least 27,000 employees.
Well, that's why they were slow to realize the problem.
Okay, right.
We didn't realize we had them in the first place.
Some of whom have already seen their bank accounts drained by criminals who have all I mean, it's total identity theft of that, potentially that many.
Yeah.
UPMC first said, there's only about 20. Then they said, there's only about 322. Yeah. And wait a minute, 788. And could be 20. This is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, and although it's UPMC, I mean, which sort of automatically makes it, I mean, the fact is, but for the grace of God,
this stuff's happening
so many
all over
the
place,
yeah.
all over the place. And pretty soon this will just be, I don't know. I'll tell you, that internet, ain't it great?
Yeah.
Really. And somewhat good news about the August Wilson Center. There are offers on the table, and maybe not. Why are you saying well? Because the big offer is for $9.5 million, and it's by somebody unnamed who apparently wants to put a hotel on top of it and still allow August Wilson or whatever entity to continue
programming to some extent, yes.
And be able to use the auditorium maybe a third of the year,
yes.
blah, blah, blah. What's better than nothing?
Yeah, but on the other hand, conversely, it may not be as good as a smaller dollar value offer made by the local foundation community, which I think is about $4 million. And this is, and I think Rich Fitzgerald has already been quoted in one of the papers. I can't remember
he doesn't like.
saying,
he doesn't like it.
Saying that he's against it. And I just, this will be sort of an interesting question here, whether a bankruptcy. I mean, from what I can understand,
it's all about money.
Judith Fitzgerald, and that's what bankruptcy is.
That's what her job is.
Yeah, is to. So the question is what's going to happen there? Does Dollar Bank has, I think, a $7 million mortgage. There are several other creditors there who are owned about $3 million all told between them. So it's if she takes this higher offer and that's the one she pursues, all those debtors are pretty much made whole or pretty close to it.
That's right.
Whereas but then again, maybe for the community, the broader community, which has a stake, even if it's not a financial stake, it might be better to go with a lower dollar amount, and that's why I think it's. There could be some bruised feelings before this is over.
Ultimately, it doesn't matter what Rich Fitzgerald thinks. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks because this gets decided by a judge, does it not?
Right, and what I'm not clear on, and I suspect, and I haven't talked to a bankruptcy attorney about this. What I'm not clear on is whether they can recognize any sort of community stake that isn't quantifiable in terms of the dollars owed. It may be that the judge and the conservatives simply have no choice but to go with the highest dollar amount. Right. Because if they did otherwise, then Dollar or some of these other folks could come after them. Now, could Dollar itself, here's a question. Could Dollar itself say, you know what?
We can forgive it.
We can forgive a portion of this as part of being. There's been no
indication that Dollar Bank is inclined to do this.
Yeah, again, I think we talked about this once before. For PNC, a couple $1 million is probably, just a drop in the bucket. For Dollar, a much smaller bank, it might not be this. It might be a much larger sacrifice.
Exactly right. Okay, so on to I'm sure you can wax poetic on the passing of.
I can't.
You can't?
Yeah, I don't. I can't.
Did you ever read his stuff?
No.
Oh my God! You never read his stuff? I thought for sure.
I've never read Gabriel Garcia Marquez. No.
Gabriel Garcia Marquez? You never read him?
I didn't.
Why? Did you ever try?
No.
I did. I have to admit, it's even more embarrassing because I have I know you've perused my bookshelves and sitting. He's the type who, if you invite him to your house, he immediately goes for your bookshelves and
as I'm looking for stuff to borrow.
As if it's going to tell him something about your soul.
No, it's because I'm looking for something to borrow.
Okay. Well, you might have noted that I do have 100 Years of Solitude.
Yes, I think I did notice.
Did you? And you were thinking, oh my God, she's read it. I still haven't read that.
No, I noticed the spine was barely cracked past page 50.
That's true. I tried to read it, and somehow it wasn't connecting with me, so I never finished it. So I, too, have never... So I thought we two literate people could, wax with some eloquence about the passing of a man who apparently an awful lot of people really liked.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should give it another shot.
Well, I'll let you borrow it.
Okay, I'll borrow it. We're really setting ourselves an ambitious plan for the summer, aren't we? I'm going to read 100 Years of Solitude, and then we're going to go out and shoot guns. This is going to be quite the well-rounded season.
I'd rather shoot guns.
Really?
I would. I think.
Yeah. That's a sad statement if ever I heard one. I'd rather be shooting guns.
I'd rather be shooting a gun. So anyway, I've read his obit, and now I know more about him than I did in the first place. You too?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have something against foreign writers?
Not at all.
I'm just surprised. I'm really surprised you didn't. I thought, Potter's going to know all about this guy. So
no, most of my focus has been on. I've graduated with a degree in English. But most of my focus was on
He
English.
Did not write in English. Now, did he?
Translated. Although I have read other people. Borges is a.
You've read a lot of Russians.
I have read a few Russians now and then. Yeah.
And you've read.
Some Germans, because I took German.
Some Germans, and you've read some French.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I guess.
But
So what are you trying to say? I'm an
something
imperialist. Is that what you're saying? Is that where this is?
You got
standing?
something against people who come from south of the border, now, don't you? Did you ever read Isabel Allende?
No.
Oh, dear God in heaven. See where's yeah.
My wife
okay.
has, I believe.
Borges?
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
I'm actually a huge fan of, actually, as a matter of fact.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Ficciones is one of my favorites. Yeah,
What? Who?
His book Fictions, essentially.
Fictions.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. But that's like all kind of Pomo weirdness and reflexivity and everything. So
I don't even know what you're talking about.
well,
Did you say Pomo?
Yeah, postmodern.
Oh God! He said Pomo. Like I was supposed
but in
to
a
know what
in a
that
mocking
meant.
kind of way.
What? Postmodern.
Yes.
Well, Marquez came up with
Yes.
this fantastic. What do they
Magical
call
realism?
it? Magical realism.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit. I mean, excuse me. If it's
Here we
magical,
go.
it ain't realistic, okay?
That's
it's
not
sort of like
true.
it's sort of like creative nonfiction. I mean, it's like, come on. It's like
And you're really pushing over the sacred cows now, huh?
I don't know. I'm doing what my job requires, which is
Being provocative.
exactly.
So we're going to get a bunch of magical realist fans writing in now. Sending highly intertextual emails.
Okay. Yeah, 87 years old.
Yeah, there you
100
go.
years of solitude. How about the one in Love in the Years of Cholera?
Yes, Time of Cholera, I believe.
Time of
Yes,
Cholera.
Yeah. I think I saw the movie.
I would think you know him because he was pals with Fidel Castro, and you're sort of a pinko.
It doesn't mean me and Fidel are hanging out
Well,
over Cuba
by the way,
Libres.
didn't you think Fidel was dying way back when? Remember that?
Yeah.
And you increasingly see, I actually have seen a number of pictures with him now. Remember when they every once in a while trot a picture out where you could tell he was like propped up and like, and now you see pictures
Weekend
of him.
at Fidel's.
Yeah, right. and he is he's looking okay. He
spry.
looks like an old guy, but didn't you think he was dying? We all knew he was
I thought
dying.
he was. Yes.
Everybody knew he was
I mean, the
dying.
whole thing with the transition.
Yeah, right, with Raul and
No,
all
maybe not
that.
running the country has sort of rejuvenated him a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe whatever it was he had.
It's like when I quit this
They
job, I'll have a
fixed.
full head of hair inside of 6 months.
So, so what do you think about Hillary Clinton running for president at the same time that she's becoming a grandmother? It's it'd be quite a year for her,
Yes,
huh? What do you
yeah.
think? What do you think? You don't care.
Well, I'm not sure. What am I supposed to think about that?
I don't know. The idea of Bill
She dodges a shoe pretty well, from what I can see.
No, that's what was so funny about the shoe, because that shoe went flying past her, and it was almost a full second later that she went like this. and the same thing happened to me this weekend.
Somebody threw a shoe at you?
No, I was a similar thing that showed me my reactions
I see.
were hardly
Yeah,
going to help me. I was on a turnpike
Yeah.
in a neighboring state,
Mm-hmm.
and I was traveling at a high rate of speed, which is my habit, and I was passing a truck,
Mm-hmm.
and whop! A large thing hit my windshield.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And it hit my windshield, and that, like I went,
Sure.
first it hits, and then you duck.
Right.
Well, what good is that going to do you?
Yeah.
And also,
Now I'm a little worried about you with a driver's license, to be honest with you. I was probably stuck behind you on the street the other day, just like,
well, that is dangerous when that happens, because, you duck and you're...
The irony of it is, you heard like Rush Limbaugh and people alleging that the shoe incident had been staged. Now, if the shoe incident had been staged, wouldn't she have been
a little more
ready for it?
ready
a little
to duck.
better?
Yeah.
But again, this is that right-wing mindset, too. It's just like, seriously? Like,
Okay, so what else is going on? Oh, Obama did another victory lap about Affordable Care Act,
Yeah.
came out and he
8
said there's
million.
all these 8 million now, and
Yeah.
30-some% are young. And it's so funny how the Republicans keep It doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah. There's unskewing the numbers now.
Oh, who came up? I was doing that 4802, and Bill Green was trying to debunk the success of it. So he was throwing numbers out. And these are people who, they had insurance already, and these are people that were there, and these are people, and he was giving numbers, and I'm sort of adding them in my head. And by the time he was done, it was clear that actually not only hadn't anybody signed up, according to him, for the Affordable Care Act, but in fact, millions had apparently lost their insurance. It's.
And they count as those numbers the people who, because their plans were so terrible or whatever, they ended up losing them to get something else.
So apparently there's been a memo that got outed, and it tells Republicans that they have to double down on their anti-Obamacare stuff into the fall, that this is their winning thing, this is how they're going to win it. And so, again...
Well, because what else are they going to do? I mean, they essentially have gone all in on this, and we're, 6 months from an election here, a little more than that. They can't possibly allow themselves to admit they made a mistake, because that will blow up. I mean, look, there's no secret about what they're doing.
Admit a mistake? When have they ever done that?
Yeah, and doing that will demoralize their base, and what they're counting on is their base showing up and voting, and our base not doing that. And
there's a
history says there's a good reason
what's going to happen
for them to do that. So
if we lose the Senate, I'll tell you whose fault it is. It's Democrats' fault.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot. The sad thing for us in Pennsylvania is we don't have a Senate election in the coming up this fall, so there's nothing Pennsylvania can do about that, of course, except for voting out our governor. So do that.
Okay, and we got to take a break, but I do want to thank Margaret for sending me, because I said I was a little freaked that both Air Force One and Air Force Two were employed to bring the president and the vice president in for that photo op-y thing they did.
Yes.
Because, what a waste of
fossil
fuel
fuels,
and everything and blah, blah, blah. And I said they couldn't take the same plane. And no, in fact, they cannot take the same plane by law.
Yeah.
And so she did send me the thing.
It's probably a good rule if you think about it, really.
I suppose.
Sort of defeats the already marginal purpose of having a vice president.
Well, and also, it also ensures that John Boehner would not be elevated to the presidency. Can you imagine that? And I will let you ruminate on that nightmarish prospect as we take a quick break.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
BergBargains.com is your best bet for great deals in the Berg. Log on today for exclusive bargains from your favorite local events and shows like Pyrofest, City Theater, The Improv, and Good Taste Pittsburgh at the Marriott North in Cranberry on Saturday, April 26th. BergBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BergBargains.com.
Confusion ever someone or have sudden...
Have you ever had sudden confusion, trouble speaking, or understanding someone?
It could be one of the 5 signs of stroke.
Sudden weakness or numbness of the face, arm, or leg.
Sudden trouble with vision in one or both eyes.
Suddenly having trouble walking or difficulty with balance.
Or a sudden intense headache that comes out of nowhere.
Don't wait. Call 911 immediately.
Time lost is brain lost.
Find out more at powertoendstroke.org. Brought to you by the American Heart Association, American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
I think there's a word for that. When somebody says something to you and it demands a clever retort. And
it's a French phrase.
You don't think of it until after, when you can't. What do you get?
It's a French phrase, and I don't know what it is in the original French, but it translates as something like words on the stair. In other words, you thought about it as you were walking down the stairs from wherever you were going. Yeah.
Right. Damn it! Why didn't I say?
Yeah. Maybe somebody out there knows what that phrase is, but I don't know.
No, we were talking about how after you do an appearance or you give a speech or you're blah, blah, blah,
you're haunted by all the stuff you could have done, should have done differently.
I should have said this, and why didn't I say that? And I mean, what wasted time and energy when, in fact, the odds are nobody at the event, everybody at the event itself is sleeping soundly. Right.
At the event sometimes.
Yeah, right. Well, that's true too. Well, that's true too, because when you're giving a speech and you're looking out at your audience, why is it that the only person you consistently see is the one that's like?
Because your mind is geared through thousands of years of evolutionary whatever to pick out differences in a crowd. So all the people who are interested, you don't notice. You look for the one face that registers as different.
Is that so we can be bigots? What do you mean?
No, I'm saying so. It's like
so. Why would that be?
So, like for example, when we were in our hunter-gatherer phase, right? You'd look out over the plains and you would just see the grass, and you would ignore all that, but you would notice that one stirring.
Oh, because
thing
that's
in the
where
grass.
that's the thing we want.
Exactly. So that's why we signal out those people.
And that's when we get our guns out that we're going to go by.
Right, and then one of them turns out to be a Bureau of Land Management agent. He got my cows! Cattle rustling.
Okay, so did you hear what happened to the Portland water supply?
Yeah, they flushed it all down because somebody peed in the reservoir. Is that
one person, a guy, was caught peeing, relieving himself in some huge reservoir that was holding already treated water that would then be. And they got rid of the whole thing.
That guy must be feeling pretty good about himself right now. Yeah, exactly.
Wow, man. My urine is and then science. I mean, people have said that the amount of pee that would have to be in that reservoir to in any way affect.
And doesn't the water come from the reservoir get treated anyway, or is that treated water in that reservoir? No,
that's the water ready, I guess, to go out or something. And
you got to build a bigger fence if that's your standard, is what that tells me.
Exactly right. Yeah. And I think if it hadn't been known, because it was reported in the media.
Yeah, who knows how many times?
I mean, people, come on, you're drinking pee all the time.
I got a 3-year-old at home, man.
You're drinking
If
pee.
Drinking a little pee is the worst of it for me, I'm ahead of the game.
Jeez. I mean, how many of you have ever been in a swimming pool?
Yeah.
Hello? You're drinking
Or the ocean.
pee.
Or the ocean.
Oh, the ocean. Oh, my God, what you're drinking
Those
in
fish
the ocean.
are urinating all over the place.
Jeez. God. Stupid.
But that's a good Portland story. Right? Is it Portland, Maine, or Portland, Oregon?
I think it's Oregon.
Yeah, that's like a great. I mean, that seems to be just
a
like
perfect Portland story.
Yeah. Well, it turned out probably the urine wasn't locally sourced. They found out the guy had a non-organic diet.
Oh, that was
right, exactly.
That's right.
If the guy had been like
vegan,
right, exactly.
If he had been vegan, it might have been okay.
If he had been drinking non-hormonal milk, right, like hormone-free milk, they would have let it go.
We might have been able to let it go. That is true.
Locally sourced urine. That would have been great. But people.
All right. So, didn't you find that story unbelievable? What they did to that poor kid in South Fayette?
Yeah. That's interesting about that story was it was one of those things that was on the internet for like 2 weeks, and then
what was that?
And then finally the Tribune Review did it, and the Post-Gazette didn't get around to it until yesterday.
What is with that? I mean, because I kept thinking, where is this story coming from?
It's
I was seeing it on Twitter and stuff. It was a legitimate, good story.
Yeah.
And especially given the fact this happened, I think the day after the Murraysville.
Right, and that may be why everybody was just focused on
that. There's no excuse.
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying.
No excuse.
Interestingly, I just had to think about this online. The other example of that too is,
and we're talking about the kid who, being bullied, made a tape recording
it on his cell phone,
being bullied on his iPad.
Yeah, his iPad. Yeah.
And he gets arrested
for wiretapping. I mean, Pennsylvania does have a 2-party consent rule that says you can't run audio tape on somebody without their knowledge and consent, but. My understanding has always been that there's a certain leeway there for situations where it's a public whatever, and there's not an expectation of it. And in any case, come on.
Yeah, right. And in any case,
right.
What the hell?
To cite the famous landmark case, Marshall v. Madison.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, right. What are you thinking?
It's Madison v. Marbury. I apologize.
Okay, so what's funny is that
Sorry, I just had to correct my Supreme Court jurisprudence there. Go ahead.
I still don't think you
Got it
happened
right.
upon the right site.
Okay,
No.
all right.
So the school superintendent and the people at the high school are saying, well, the whole story is not out. This is not correct.
Yeah, what else are they going to say?
Yeah, what else are they going to say? And we cannot say
because it's students and blah, blah, blah.
HIPAA, whatever.
Yeah.
So what could they possibly say?
Yeah.
Here's the other thing, and I talked to Sokolowski about this before. You seen a picture of the kid?
Yeah.
He doesn't look like a kid that would be bullied, that he looked big.
Yeah. Well.
Isn't that interesting? Or you don't find that interesting?
No,
I think if you're a big kid, unless you're like, maybe you're like Lenny in Of Mice and Men.
I mean, simply being a big kid is no proof against that stuff.
I guess
In fact, there's research. I was sort of interested. There's recently some research that suggested that we tend to think of bullying as being the exclusive province of, people who are like me, sort of nerds and not terribly popular. But in fact, a lot of these kinds of social power games happen to people who are socially not generally your Heathers, not the very top of the top, but anybody sort of below that. And in fact, they sometimes have a harder time with it because the approval of their peers matters more to them and because they've come to expect it.
Right.
And so having it withdrawn or being punished for that or whatever is harder for them than for the losers like myself who never expected it in the first place.
Will you stop?
I had a tough time for a lot. I had a tough time for a lot of these. I'm just saying that because I don't want to be perceived as picking on those kids myself. I mean, I was among their numbers. So it's quite possible that somebody like me in some ways had an easier time with any one sort of act of, whatever maltreatment than somebody who wasn't accustomed to it.
I had this, you're reminding me of this mortifying conversation I had about 6 years ago. And I can't remember how it happened, but I ended up getting in touch with someone who had been in school with me through, and he was definitely not in the in crowd.
Yeah.
And, but he and I knew each other more because we were both Jewish. So all the Jewish kids, are stuck together.
Oh, yeah.
But
I've heard about that.
we were sort of, like together because there were so few of us in the entire town. And I was talking to him and saying things, and I don't know if at some point I guess I did. I said, well, I treated you well, didn't I, Steve?
That's called leading with your chin.
I was blown away.
Really? Yeah.
He felt that I lorded it over him, and I swear.
Yeah.
I'm still so more, and actually later as I thought about it, I got mad at him. I thought, I don't remember ever feeling that way about you, but
Isn't
maybe he just perceived it just because I was popular and he wasn't, or because I didn't,
maybe you were kind of a bitch, Lynn.
I was never a bitch. I was not a bitch. My whole thing was I was like such a bleeding heart. It was pathetic.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, it was like a, and somehow when you were talking, I started remembering it again. I really was so freaked by that.
Yeah. Isn't that weird that we think?
But that's, there's perceptions. I must have.
Perceive
he's not somebody I wanted to hang out with.
There you go.
Well, I didn't.
Well, there you go.
Well,
a bleeding heart would have just hung out with him. Man.
It's not easy being a kid.
No.
It's not easy being a teenager.
Yeah. It's funny, all this is reminding me of a few years ago we had our 20th high school reunion, which I did not go to. Yeah. But somehow I guess it's not too hard to find me if you want my email address. So we print it 70,000 times a week. But somehow I got on this email list and they were circulating, all these things. And to be honest, I didn't know half the people who were participating in this.
No, I understand that. I don't
but there was a moment at which somebody who I dimly had sort of known in my school, like finally just, I guess, got just had enough of it and just wrote this thing, like a reply to all that was just like, you people made my life a living hell.
Really?
I hate and despise you all. I wouldn't be, caught dead at this thing. It was just really like,
wow. Didn't you think good for him or her?
I sort of did. I thought and then I also sort of thought. It was
too broad brush.
I also sort of thought, and somebody finally, and there was this stunned silence for like 2 days. Nobody knew what to say. And finally somebody said something like, high school is difficult for all of us. And I'm sure we've learned a lot and maybe we treat each other better now than it was, it's just like.
Oh, geez.
But it did, and she was somebody I didn't necessarily know real well, but I would have said we were both in our little sorry little silos. And you know what I mean? Like, so I kind of understood where she was coming from. But on the other hand, there's also part of just kind of like people who succeed in high school, I think it's almost a curse to them. They flower too early in life.
I agree. That is true.
If my kid's prom king, I'm going to be really worried.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But no, it's true.
So that's why.
Don't worry.
So that's why we're not getting cable, son.
And I bet your mom
doesn't know what's on
your
TV.
Mom's not going to let you play football either.
Yeah, no, we've talked about that.
You're not.
Yeah, it's out. We have absolutely no intention of letting that happen.
All right, football's out.
Yeah, which is too bad because he's a bruiser.
Yeah, he looks like he could be a little bruiser.
I don't know where it came from because it ain't my side. Leads with his head though, which is not a good thing to do.
Oh God. So anyway, high school. Oh God, the damage that gets done there. Oh. Yeah. Oh, and you don't realize because even the people in the in crowd can be like tortured souls. I mean,
yes. Yeah.
I was in the in crowd and I was as tortured and unhappy and miserable and felt totally isolated because, frankly, I didn't like the in crowd.
Right.
But I was in it.
Yeah.
What a weird bunch of.
You're like one of the Heathers.
I don't know what.
Have you ever seen that movie, Heathers? No. That's a great movie. You should see that movie. It is really quite good, actually.
Jeez. So my brother is getting feelers about his 50th high school.
Oh God.
Yeah, right. And he actually heard from the first. The person who got in touch with him is the first person he ever had sexual congress with.
Wow, it sounds like it was great.
No, it wasn't. He tells very funny stories about it. Yeah,
if you use the word Congress as part of it, it probably wasn't real good.
No, it was, according to him, it was humiliating.
Yeah.
So, right. So, he asked her. He said, because he's weird. He said, "I'm more interested." He said, "Do you have an idea of how many of us are deceased?"
Jesus.
And it's
a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
It was like 78 out of a class of 300 something. Yeah. I mean, it was a lot. And then she sent him the names. He starts looking at these names. He gets so depressed because there's people on the list who were sad children.
Yeah.
Who nobody ever talked to much. And then he could tell from the bio
that
Rigby's. That they never lived a life that was...
for God's sake, how do you know?
Dead by 40. No, he could tell because some didn't even have obits. There was nothing. There was just a death certificate. There was just, you could see that some had... he said, oh my God, these lives of quiet desperation that some people live that are never...
Well, I'll tell you what. If he goes to that reunion, he's not, because he sounds like he'd be a lot of fun to hang out with.
I think I'm going to go to mine 50th.
Really?
Which will be coming up soon. I'm not that much younger than him, so I think I have to go just to.
To what?
I don't know. Gape. The last one I went to...
That's what high school was.
Well, I know. The last one I went to might have been like 35 or something.
Yeah.
And already there were a whole bunch of them that were retired.
Yeah.
And they were saying, oh, yeah, me and the wife got an RV and we got a little cabin out there in Michigan. And we hunt, we fish, we go around...
Why would you want to go again? That sounds awful.
Oh, I think it's bizarre.
Oy.
All right. Okay. Wait. Well, we have no idea what this was, but whatever it is...
It's over. It's done now.
It is toast. We want to wish all the success in the world to both, you don't have anything to do with this, both our Pittsburgh Pirates and our Pittsburgh
Penguins.
That is correct. I didn't know if he knew we were in a playoff.
Yeah.
Right. And the Penguins.
Yes.
And the Penguins. And I think that's all we have.
Happy
Easter.
And
Happy Easter. Oh, I knew there was something. Happy Easter. And don't give kids little bunnies or little chicks. Okay? Thank you very much. That's from, the people at PETA.
Yeah.
That's right. Don't do that. And see you on Monday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.